Yo, what's up guys, it's your boy Sami here. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto was Kyuubi's son, part 1. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please subscribe to our channel, and like this video. So let's get into the video. Peace was going through the village hidden in leaves. The people were happy with it. The war with the hidden rock was over, and everything was recovering nicely. Everyone was happy under the leadership of the 4th Hokage Namikaze Minato. While the people were happy, the Hokage himself was miserable. He was forced to battle the very evil of the village hidden in the leaves, the hated paperwork. After signing over another document, Minato let his mind wander as to how to get this done faster, until he remembered the forbidden technique called Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, which would create a solid clone of himself, and when that clone dispelled he would gain all the facts they had learned. It was perfect. Until he remembered that it was a high-ranking jutsu that was not meant to be used for such inappropriate things. But he hadn't slept for 2 days because of the paperwork, and he needed a break, so he formed the hand signs, and said Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, and created 4 clones. He then proceeded to jump out the window, and run straight towards the forest outside the village. Once Minato was in the middle of the forest away from everything, he felt at peace at least, until heard a woman scream in pain. What was that? He asked out loud, and ran to the noise. When Minato came to a clearing where the noise was coming from, he noticed a woman with red hair, a very beautiful face, ample-sized breasts, and a bright red kimono. She was bleeding pretty badly, and was in pain, but what really got his attention was the fact she had red eyes, claws, whisker marks on her cheeks, 2 fox ears on her head, and 9 tails behind her. As Minato crept closer, he could hear her whispering something. Damn you, Yamada, you snake bastard, the next time I see you I'm going to tear your eyes out, your head all 8 of them. After hearing this, Minato decided to approach the woman to see if he could help, so he walked into the clearing, and got her attention. Miss, do you need some help? The woman looked at Minato, and glared at him, her red eyes blazing with hate. What do you want, human? She snarled at him. Minato was taken back by a human, but with her features she was most likely a demon. But that didn't bother him. She needed help, and one of the few useful things his sensei taught him when he wasn't peeking in on women, was that if a woman is in need, to help her. Minato got as close to her as possible, and said to her, you look like you could use some help. The woman just looked at him with even more hate than before, and shouted at him, I don't need the help of some filthy human. I am the great Kyuubi no Yuko, the strongest of the tailed beast, and I don't need help from you, so leave me alone. Mortal Kyuubi said while hissing in pain, and holding her shoulder. Minato was stunned. This was Kyuubi no Yuko. This rude, egomonastic, and beautiful woman was the Kyuubi. Minato pondered this, but focused on the task at hand. He wanted to help her whether she liked it or not. He pulled her hand away from her shoulder to look at the wound. It was severely bruised, and blood was pouring from it. A green substance was leaking from the wound, which he guessed was the poison of the Yamada no Urachi. Of course this pissed Kyuubi off that this human had the nerve to touch her when she specifically told him to fuck off and leave her alone, so she shouted at him. How dare you touch me, you fucking hairless ape? What gives you the right to touch me? Just leave me alone before I decide to make you into a meal. You're nothing but. Kyuubi was interrupted by Minato. Will you shut the fuck up? I'm trying to help you here, so will you just shut up already, and let me help you? This had so shocked Kyuubi, that this human, and this man would dare tell her, the Kyuubi no Yuko, to shut up. He had guts, to this she had to admit. Minato soon spoke up. This wound on your shoulder looks really bad. We need to get it looked at, or else it could get worse. Kyuubi didn't like where this was going. She knew that the poison of Yamada would kill her. With her chakra so low, even a simple human could kill her, so she had no choice but to swallow her pride. She looked at Minato, and said to him, what can you do to help humans? Minato just looked at her like he was slapped in the face. Kyuubi no Yuko, the strongest of the tailed beast, was asking for help from a human. It was amazing. Kyuubi was getting annoyed that he wasn't replying. Hey Baka human, what can you do to help? Minato snapped out of his trance, and replied, I know some healing jutsu that could work, but we need to get you to the village where an expert can help. Upon hearing this, Kyuubi wanted to object that she could accept the help of one human, but going to a human village was out of the question. And she decided to voice her opinion. No, there's no way I'm going to some filthy human village. I would rather die. Minato just sighed. Why do women have to be so stubborn? Alright, we won't go to the village. Let's at least get started on healing that wound, he said calmly, and began the signs for the healing technique. Soon green chakras surround Minato's hands, and he placed them on the wound, and slowly it began to heal. Once Minato was finished, he asked, does it feel any better? Kyuubi moved her arm a little. The pain was dulled, but it was still there. It still hurts, but the pain has dulled. Thanks. What's your name anyway? Kyuubi asked, to which he answered, Namikaze Minato. Kyuubi just looked at him after hearing his name, and thinking, Namikaze Minato, it's a nice name for a human. Once he finished the wound, Kyuubi looked at the wound. It wasn't fully healed, but the poison was mostly gone, but the sign of infection was still there. Minato just looked at the wound, and at Kyuubi, seeing that he needed to have an expert look at it. Minato sighed, and looked at Kyuubi, saying, that's the best I could do, but we're going to have an expert look at it, so you have to come back to the village. On hearing this, Kyuubi glared at him, and said, no, I will not go to a filthy human village. Minato's left eye began to twitch in annoyance, and he began to say in an angry tone of voice, "You going with me to the village, and that's final." As Minato said this, he reached over to Kyubi, grabbed her, and put her on his shoulder. This pissed Kyubi off, and she let him know about it. "How dare you, you filthy hairless monkey, put me down this instant. I am Kyubi no Yuko, and you will put me down now, you hentai. You filthy hentai hairless monkey," she said while banging him on his back and hitting his head with her tails. Soon she had given up and stopped, deciding to just lay there while he walked to the village. Once they were almost there, Minato looked at her and said, "We're almost to the village now. I can either let you down and let you walk there with some dignity, or I can keep carrying you like a child through the entire village." Kyubi was shocked he was calling her a child and was going to mortify her like that. She may not care what humans think, but she still had some pride, as a demon. She looked at Minato and said with her teeth clenched together, "I will not run away, please put me down." Minato did what she asked, and they walked the rest of the way. Soon they reached the village gate and were greeted by two Jounin Hokage-sama. "Where have you been?" they said at the exact same time. Kyubi looked at Minato in shock, thinking, this baka is the leader of a village. Minato looked at the Jounin and said, "Take this woman to Tsunade and tell her that I'm calling in that favor from a while back." The two men looked at the woman and instantly knew what she was. They looked over to their leader. "Hokage-sama, do you want us to take this demon to Tsunade-sama?" Minato just glared at the two. "If that's a problem with you two, you can do D-rank missions for the next 2 years instead." The two flinched. 2 whole years of D-rank missions was a ninja's worst nightmare, and without missing a beat they too replied, "We will gladly escort the young women to Tsunade-sama right away." Minato smiled and replied to the Jounin, "Good. Then I'll leave her in your capable hands." He then turned to Kyubi and said, "I'll come by and check on you later. Jana Kyubi-chan." And with that, Minato used Hiraishin no Jutsu to leave. Kyubi just stood there thinking about what Minato had said. "He called me Kyubi-chan." Soon the three were walking through the village. Kyubi stood behind the two Jounin and listened to the people whispering about her, to which she just ignored. Once the Jounin had arrived at the hospital, they now stood in front of a blonde-haired woman wearing a green coat and a jewel on her forehead. The two Jounin walked up to her and calmly said, "Tsunade-sama, the Hokage-sama wishes for your medical experience in order to help this woman behind us." Tsunade just sat there staring at them, not moving or anything. The two just looked at each other and repeated what they said to her. "Tsunade-sama, the Hokage-sama wishes for your medical experience in order to help this woman behind us." Tsunade still did nothing. The two Jounin looked at each, and one of them waved his hand in front of her and snapping his fingers as well. Then they got real close to and began to hear her snoring. The two Jounin looked at each other. She's asleep with her eyes open again. Upon hearing that, Kyubi was getting annoyed that Minato wanted this woman to heal her. She walked up to the desk of the Jounin, wondering what she was going to do. Kyubi stood right in front of Tsunade with a scowl, and then kicked the desk while screaming, "Hey Baba, wake the fuck up." This got Tsunade's attention. No one called her a hag, and she looked at Kyubi and said, "Who are you calling a hag, you little bitch?" This pissed Kyubi off because Inu and Kitsune had never gotten along, and to be called a dog was a huge mistake, so she decided to let Tsunade know it. "How dare you call one of those filthy fleabags? I'm a fox, for your information." Upon hearing this, Tsunade finally noticed the fox ears and 9 tails she had, and came to the conclusion, and said nervously, "You're a demon." Tsunade then looked at the two Jounin in anger, and said, "You brought me a demon to my office." The two were scared now, and said, "We were only following orders from the Hokage. He said you would do it because of the favor." Tsunade figured out what they were saying, and rubbed her temples, and mumbled, "I hate that sometimes." She then turned to Kyubi, and said, "Follow me, and we'll see what the problems is." She then turned to the two Jounin, and said, "Go find Shizune, and tell her to meet me in examining room 1. The two replied, "Hi, Tsunade-sama," and left. Once in the room, Tsunade had Kyubi remove her clothes to check her wound, seeing the bruising, as well as a small trace of poison still left behind. As Tsunade was examining her, she noticed that Kyubi was blushing a little, and refusing to make eye contact. At that, Tsunade smirked, and said to her, "You don't have to be embarrassed. You have a very beautiful body." This caused Kyubi to blush a deeper red. Not long after, Shizune showed up to help Tsunade by taking the poison to see if she could produce an antidote for one of the deadliest poisons ever. Once they were done, Tsunade put some bandages around the wound, and put Kyubi in a hospital gown, and looked at her. "The wound is nearly healed, but we're not sure about the poison, so you'll have to stay here for a few days." Kyubi wanted to protest, but Tsunade interrupted with the doctor's orders, and left. After a while, Kyubi was bored out of her mind. She had officially come to hate hospitals, and she was about to leave and make a run for it when she heard a knock at the door. When it opened, there stood Minato with a smile on his face, and some flowers in his hand. Kyubi just stared at him, and wondered why he brought a bunch of flowers to her. "Human, what are you doing here, and why did you bring flowers with you?" Minato just smiled at her, and answered, "I came by to see if you were okay, and the flowers are just a gift to show someone that you are happy they are okay." Kyubi blushed a little, and asked, "Are those for me?" Minato just smiled, and said, "Of course they are. Who else would they be for, but a beautiful woman like you?" At this, both demon and human blushed, with Minato saying, "Did I say that out loud?" Kyubi nodded her head. Minato began to panic and wanted to leave, and, as he was about to walk out the door, but, as he turned away from Kyubi, he felt something tugging on his arm. He turned to see Kyubi holding him. Kyubi looked at him and asked him, "Did you mean what you said? Do you really think that I'm beautiful?" Minato just looked at her. "Hi, I think you're beautiful, Kyubi-chan." Kyubi didn't know what to say. She couldn't understand what she was feeling when she looked at him. She had always been alone all her life, and then this man comes into her life, and suddenly she can't think straight. On the other side of the door, peering into the room, were 3 sets of eyes watching the young man and demon to see what was happening. These people were Tsunade, Shizune, and Minato's sensei Jiraiya. Tsunade looked at her teammate. "So do you think those two will get together or what?" Jiraiya looked at her. "Maybe, who knows? Tell you the truth, I hope so. He needs a girl in his life, and she looks perfect for him, as far as demons go." Back with Minato and Kyubi, who were still lost in the moment of what just happened, Kyubi stood up from the bed and walked right up to Minato and looked him in the face and said, "Why do you think I'm beautiful, Minato? I'm not even a human, why do you think that?" Minato looked at her. He knew what she was saying was true, she wasn't human, and he knew that fact. To even think of what he was feeling towards a demon was frowned upon by society, yet he didn't care because he loved her. He was in love with Kyubi no Yuko, and he didn't care what anyone thought. Minato looked at and smiled and placed his hand on her cheek. This confused Kyubi, and he spoke, "Kyubi, the reason that I say you are beautiful is because what I'm trying to say is that Kyubi-chan, I love you." And with that, Minato pressed his lips into Kyubi's. Kyubi was stunned. She couldn't move or think of the man who she at first saw as nothing, but another human was kissing her, and she enjoyed it. She loved it, she loved him, and it didn't matter that he was a human at all. The group outside, which originally was 3 people, turned into a mob of people, all trying to get a look at why their Hokage would be in the same room as a female demon. To much of their surprise, when they hear him say he loved her, and to see him kissing her with a passion. Once the two finished and separated for air, they looked at each other, each saying the first thing that came out of their mouths was "I love you." After that was said, a clapping noise was heard, and there stood Minato's sensei Jiraiya. Along with Tsunade, a few other doctors, nurses, and a few civilians. Minato looked at Jiraiya. The man may have been a pervert, no scratch that a super pervert, but he was still the closest thing to a father he ever had. And right now he was afraid that he wouldn't accept what he felt for Kyubi. Jiraiya looked at his student with a serious look and said, "Minato, you do realize that having relations with a demon is not accepted by everyone in the world?" Minato looked at his old sensei and replied, "I understand that, Jiraiya-sama, but I really do love Kyubi-chan, and I would do anything to be with her." Jiraiya smiled at his student and placed his hand on his shoulder. "I'm proud of you, you have a good woman there, and I give you my blessing." Minato smiled at his old sensei. "Thank you, Jiraiya-sensei." Jiraiya also smiled again and said, "I also wish to give you a gift as well." He reached into his coat and pulled out a book that said Icha Paradise Full 3 limited edition. At this, Minato's left eye twitched, and Tsunade was cracking her knuckles ready to kill her teammate until a loud hentai was heard, and Jiraiya was sent flying through the air and crashing into the wall that separated Konoha from the rest of the world. Minato just looked at Kyubi to see that her fist was right where Jiraiya's face was, and her fist wasn't even bruised after punching his sensei through a hospital wall. Minato looked at Tsunade and replied, "I'll pay for that, Tsunade-sama." She just looked at him, smiled, and replied, "Don't worry about it. You also have my blessing as well, I like this girl." Minato smiled and looked at Kyubi. She was still mad at his sensei, but he smiled at her. At least she spoke her mind. Months went by, and Kyubi and Minato got closer and closer. They went on dates and spent as much time as they could together, and Minato was very surprised to find out that Kyubi had a soft spot for kids and was often seen at the orphanage helping children and bringing them toys and sweets. When she wasn't spending time with kids, Kyubi went under Tsunade's wing to learn medicine to help her get the hang of it quickly, and with her nearly unlimited supply of chakra, she could do the most complicated operations with ease. Kyubi was also loved by the village. At first they were afraid of her, and thought she was corrupting their leader, but they came to see why he loved her, and in return loved her as well. There were some that still didn't like her, mainly the older generation, and Minato's fangirls, but they did nothing. It was exactly 1 year since the two had met after coming home from a date at Minato's favorite ramen stand Ichiraku, much to Kyubi's disappointment, but she didn't mind. She just wondered where he put 27 bowls of ramen away. Once they arrived at Minato's mansion, Kyubi decided to take a shower, and, as she was there, she was thinking of all the time she was with the man she loved, and decided it's time. Minato was getting ready for bed when the bedroom door opened to see Kyubi in a bathrobe dripping wet from her shower, but what really caught Minato's attention was that her breasts were nearly showing, and he couldn't look away. Kyubi walked up to him and placed her lips on his, surprising him as she deepened it. He could feel her tongue in his mouth, and he just enjoyed it. When they broke for air, Minato just stared at Kyubi and asked, "What's gotten into you, Kyubi-chan?" Kyubi just looked at him and replied, "Minamoto-kan, you know I love you, right?" Minato was confused, but answered, "Of course, and I love you, Kyubi-chan. What's wrong?" he asked in worry. Kyubi just looked at him and replied, "Nothing's wrong, Minato-kun, it's just that we've been together for a year, and it's been the happiest time of my life. You have always been there for me, even when we first met you were there for me." Minato was a little surprised at hearing all this, but let Kyubi continue. Kyubi was starting to get teary eyes, and continued, "All my life I was alone. I wasn't born like most kitsune who are born with one tail. I was born with 9 tails, and everyone was afraid of my power. Even my own parents were afraid of me. I could tell they loved me, but there was still the fear in their eyes." Minato was shocked Kyubi never talked about her past. He tried to get her to talk about it, but she always said it wasn't important. Now he knew why she didn't want to talk about it. It was because it brought back bad memories. Kyubi continued with what she was saying. "I was alone for so long, and then I met you, a mere human who just wanted to help me, and who wasn't afraid of me. That is when I started to love you." Kyubi started to cry into his chest, and through her tears she said, "After all the time I have been with you, come to this decision, Minato-kun, would you be my mate?" To say Minato was shocked was an understatement. He knew what she was asking him. She was asking him in demon terms to be his wife, and him her husband. Minato looked at Kyubi, and replied, "Kyubi-chan, you are asking me to do something big, and it is only right that I do this." Minato got on one knee, and held Kyubi's hand, and pulled out a box with a ring in it, and said, "Kyubi-chan, will you marry me, and be my wife, and I your mate?" Kyubi looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Hi, Minamoto-kun, I will marry you." And with that Minato got up, and kissed Kyubi again with passion, and a bit of lust. Lemon. While the two were exploring each other's mouths, Kyubi let the bathrobe she was wearing fall to the ground, revealing all her natural glory, as the day she was born. Minato looked at her body, and saw her figure. She had breasts almost the size of Tsunade's, she had a flat stomach, and from a closer look red hair just above her womanhood, and seeing this Minato could feel a bit of blood dripping from his nose. Kyubi noticed this, and smiled, and replied in a sexy voice, "So you like what you see, Minato-kun?" And reached into his pants to feel his manhood, and this surprised her when she did. "It must be 10 inches long." Kyubi thought to herself. After feeling his dick, Kyubi lost it, and ripped off Minato's sweepants to get a better look at his member, and once she did she just stared at it, and then took it into her mouth. She slowly began to suck, and deep-throat him, then taking it out, and licking the side of it, and listening to all the moans that she was hearing from her lover. It wasn't long before Minato coomed into Kyubi's mouth. She nearly choked, but managed to swallow it all. She looked at Minato, and said, "It tastes like ramen." Minato chuckled at this, and picked Kyubi up, and placed her on the bed, and got between her legs. Kyubi looked at him wondering what he was up to until she felt something against her womanhood, and noticed Minato was eating her out, and she loved it. "Minato-kun, don't stop, it's so good, please, for the love of Kami, don't you dare fucking stop." Minato had no reason to stop, and kept pleasing the woman he loved, thinking, "I guess all that time with Jiraiya is paying off." After 10 minutes of Minato licking Kyubi's pussy, she finally came, and screamed loud enough for the whole village to hear, which they did, including a white-haired pervert who was writing his next book, Ichigo Chikitsune. Back to the couple. Minato just finished giving Kyubi pleasure when he got on the bed, and placed a kiss on her lips again with some of Kyubi's juices still in his mouth. Once they broke apart, and he positioned his manhood in front of her womanhood, about to enter her when Kyubi stopped him. "Minato, stop." Minato looked at her, afraid that she had changed her mind at the last minute, until she said, "Minamoto-kun, there is something you should know. There is a chance that I may get pregnant after this." Minato looked at her, and smiled. "I don't mind, Kyubi-chan, I would be happy if we had a child." Kyubi smiled at him, and told him to continue, but also saying, "Also, I've never been with anyone like this before, so please be gentle, okay?" This shocked Minato, and he asked her, "You've never been with another man before, Kyubi-chan?" Kyubi nodded her head. "Hi, when a female demon lays with a male for the first time, they mate for life, and no other male can have that female, that's the role of demons." Minato was stunned, realizing that if he did this they would be stuck together for the rest of their natural lives. He had to be sure. "Kyubi-chan is sure that you want this?" Kyubi just smiled at her future mate's concern for her, and replied, "Go ahead, Minato-kun. I want this. Please take my virginity, and be my mate." Hearing this, Minato knew he couldn't say no, and so he pushed into her womanhood, breaking her hymen, causing Kyubi to scream in pain, and tears to build in her eyes. Minato looked at the woman he loved in pain for what he did to her. "Kyubi-chan, I'm sorry for hurting you, please forgive me." Kyubi just smiled at her mate, and placed her hand on his cheek. "It's okay, Minato-kun, this is something natural for all women, demon or human. Please continue, the pain is mostly gone." Minato did as he was told, and began rocking his hips into Kyubi's, thrusting faster and deeper, and Kyubi was loving it. "Minato, please don't stop, please don't stop. I feel so good, oh Kami, don't stop." They kept at it most of the night, but were soon coming to an end with screaming, "Minamoto-kun, I'm gonna come, please come inside me, give me a child, oh Kami, yes." Minato had climaxed inside of Kyubi, and she felt his seed hitting her womb, most likely impregnating, but she didn't mind, as long as it was by the man she loved. She looked at Minato, and saw his shoulder, and said, "Minamoto-kun, bite me. You need to pierce the skin, and leave a mark that will prove that I'm your mate, and that no one can claim me as yours." Minato did as he was told and bit down on Kyuubi's shoulder, and she marked each other as mates and fell asleep in each other's arms. Lemon end. Morning soon came, and a loud banging came from the front door. Minato heard this, got dressed, and went to the front door to find Tsunade and Jiraiya, one of them smiling like an idiot, and the other really pissed. Jiraiya stepped forward and smiled at his student. Way to go, my boy, you're finally a man now. On hearing this, Minato blushed and said, "What are you talking about, sensei?" Then Tsunade stepped forward and glared at him. "What we are talking about is the fact that you two kept the whole village up last night with your screaming." Minato and Kyuubi blushed after hearing that they kept the whole village up with their lovemaking. Tsunade didn't give them time to explain before she grabbed Kyuubi and started to pull her, saying, "Get moving. There's no way I'm going to let one of my students give birth to a bastard baby. You're going to get married." And that's that. Kyuubi was blushing and wanted to protest, but knew it wouldn't work. Jiraiya stood next to his student. "Come on, we have a wedding to get ready for." The wedding was to take place at noon, and everyone was nervous. Manly Minato and Kyuubi, who were sweating bullets and were each being calmed down by Shizune, the bridesmaid for Kyuubi, and Hyuga Hiashi, Minato's best friend and best man, both trying to help calm the two down. Hiashi tried telling Minato that everything would be alright. "Minato, you need to calm down by putting a hole in the floor with your pacing, and I'm being serious." Minato looked down and noticed that he was in a hole and looked at Hiashi with a worried look, saying, "How can I be calm? It's my wedding. What if something goes wrong? What if Kyuubi decides she doesn't want to marry? What if? Hiashi was starting to get annoyed, and Shizune was there too, as she was trying to calm Kyuubi down by giving her a paper bag to breathe into. Shizune rubbed her back, saying things like, "It's okay, Kyuubi-chan, just breathe, everything okay. We don't need stress on you or the baby." Kyuubi looked at her and said in between gasps, "Calm? How can I be calm? It's my wedding. I can barely breathe in this damn dress, and it's virgin white, and this baby is messing with my body, so how can I be calm, damn it?" Shizune just sighed, waiting for the stand. Once everything was set, and all the people were there, including two people dressed in robes covering their faces. At the altar, Minato stood waiting for the bride to be sweating bullets, while Hiashi was standing next to him, providing support and making sure he didn't make a run for it. Soon the altar music began, and Minato looked to see Kyuubi dressed in a virgin white gown walking towards him with a little girl in a pink kimono, holding the back of the dress. Said the girl was Mitarashi. Many people began to wonder why the student of the trader would be allowed to attend the wedding of the two most respected people in Konoha, but Minato knew why she was here. It was most likely because of Kyuubi's soft spot for children, and they both knew Enko wouldn't betray the village like her sensei did, and Kyuubi most likely personally asked her to be there. Once Kyuubi had reached her mate, she looked at him and smiled. Once everything was set, the man who would legally marry them showed up, and it was Sir Toby. Minato looked at the professor and smiled at the old man, and was smacked in the head by Kyuubi, who said, "Respect, darling." Sir Toby read through the traditional marriage vows, and was coming to the end. "So, as the previous Hokage of this village, I would like to pronounce these two husband, wife, and mates. Are there any objections to this?" Sir Toby noticed that a few people wanted to say something, but didn't out of fear. Sir Toby saw no objections, and then said, "If anyone wishes to give a word of congratulations, please step forward." At this, no one expected anyone to step forward until the two members with the HUD stepped forward. "We have something to say." Minato looked at the two, not trusting them, while Kyuubi caught their scent and looked shocked. The two took off their robes, showing a man and a woman dressed in black and white silk kimonos. They looked to be in their 30s, but what caught everyone's attention was the whisker marks on their faces, the fox ears on their head, and the black and white colored tails behind them. They were kitsunes. Everyone was trying to figure out who these demons were until they all heard Kyuubi say "Kasen," a thousand. At this, everyone was stunned, including Minato, who was soon angry and looked at the two. "What do you want?" The two looked at Minato, not a bit surprised by his reaction if Kyuubi told him of her past, and replied, "Humans, we are here to witness the marriage of our daughter." Minato got angry. "What right do you two have to be here? Kyuubi-chan told me about her past, how you were afraid of her, how you died." Minato would have gone on, but Kyuubi stopped him. "Minamoto-kan, it's okay, I want them to be here." Minato wanted to protest, but he knew how stubborn she was, and just went with it. Kyuubi's mother looked at her daughter. "Kyuubi-chan, you look beautiful." This caused Kyuubi to blush. Kyuubi's father stepped forward and looked at Sir Toby. "Sir Toby-sama, we should get on with the wedding." Kyuubi and Minato were stunned and asked, "You know each other?" Kyuubi's father gave a fox grin. "Hi, your mother was a bit of an oddball, and wanted to see what it would be like to marry like a human, so we came here and get married under Sir Toby-sama." After saying the Kyuubi mother smacked him in the head. Baka Kitsune. After that, Sir Toby finished the vows, and the two kissed. Jiraiya snapped a picture of the two. Soon there was a party with everyone laughing and enjoying the food, with Jiraiya telling stories of how Minato was a loud-mouthed brat, and Kyuubi parents told of how she used to be a timid child who would jump at a leaf. While the two were talking, Kyuubi's father went up to Jiraiya and said, "You are Jiraiya of the Toad, correct?" Jiraiya looked at him a bit nervously, then noticed him reaching into his kimono and pulled out Ichiichi Parade's full one and said, "Can I have your autograph?" Everyone burst out laughing except Kyubi, who was blushing with embarrassment at her father, and her mother noticed it. Loosening up, Kyubi-chan, you're going to get wrinkles, and it's not good for the baby either, and it's a good book for the sex life. Kyubi looked at her mother in disgust. Kasan. Kyubi's mother just looked at her. What? It's because of that book you were born in Konoha. Kyubi looked at her book in wonder. What are you talking about? Kyubi looked at her, and said, we were looking for the latest edition of that book when my water broke, and well, you know the rest. Soon afterwards, Kyubi threw the bouquet in the air, and many of the single women began fighting over it, missing it, and seeing it land in the hands of Mitarashi-enko, causing her to trip backwards, and falling into the hands of Yumino Iruka, blushing while looking at his face. Soon the party was over, and everyone was leaving, and saying goodbye, and Kyubi and Minato left for their honeymoon to the land of hot springs, and were gone for 3 months. Soon 9 months passed, and the baby was almost due. Everyone was getting ready for it, and so were the soon-to-be parents. Minato was working on paperwork in his office with one arm due to the other being in a cast, because of Kyubi's mood swings, when his secretary showed up saying, Hokage-sama, your wife has gone into labor. Minato heard this, and jumped straight out the window to the hospital. When he got there, he heard Kyubi screaming, get this fucking thing out of me, damn it. Minato soon found the room, and saw his wife screaming, throwing things, and people. It took everything. Tsunade had to keep her still. When Minato did what he was told to do, and held her hand, she broke it. 2 hours went by, and at the very last moment, after one final push, a baby boy was brought into the world, a boy with blonde hair, and blue eyes like his father, and whisker marks on his face, and fox ears on his head, and not 1 tail, but 10 tails. Kyubi and Minato looked at their son, looking at the very thing they had created. A baby boy, not human, not a demon, but that didn't matter, they would love him. Kyubi looked at her mate, smiled, and asked, what do you think we should name him? Minato looked at her, and smiled. How about we call him Naruto? Kyubi's eyes began to twitch, as in the ramen topping. Minato scratched the back of his head, and gave a fox grin. They heard laughing, and saw Naruto laughing. Kyubi sighed, seeing she was outnumbered in the vote, and smiled at Naruto, you have a bright future ahead of you. 3 years later, it had been 3 years since Minato and Kyubi had met, gotten married, mated, and had Naruto, and those 3 years alone were some of the best in Konoha's history. Hiashi and his wife also had a child not long after Naruto, a baby girl that they named Hinata. Even though Minato and Hiashi wanted Naruto and Hinata to become friends, there was always something coming up that prevented them from meeting each other. Like when Kyubi had to visit her parents and take Naruto with her, or Hiashi had to do some clan business. Then the day had come when the two men had gotten their chance, when ninja from Kamagakure no Sato had come in and offer a peace to Konoha. Minato saw this as not only a great chance for a new ally, but also a way for Naruto to meet with Hinata, seeing as Cloud wanted the meeting to take place within the Hyuga compound. Once the announcement had been made of the alliance, all of Konoha began a festival to welcome the diplomats of Cloud. While waiting for the Cloud shinobi, Minato, Kyubi, and Naruto walked to the Hyuga compound, each wearing formal kimonos to honor the event that was taking place. As they were walking through the village, Naruto, the small little half-demon, hid behind his mother and father, not out of shyness, but out of fear of the humans of the village. Flashback. It was 1 year ago at night that Naruto was in his room studying a few scrolls of his father's sealing techniques, wanting to be just like his father. He spent the night reading instead of sleeping, and was so distracted he didn't notice the person sneaking into his window. As Naruto finished reading the scroll, he turned around to see the man who had broken into his room, and smiled, hello, who are you? The man just glared down at Naruto, and brought out a kunai in his hand, and at this began to scare Naruto, as to what the man was going to do. The man stepped forward, and came closer to Naruto, who was about to make a run for it, when the man grabbed his arm, and pushed him to the floor. He stabbed Naruto through the shoulder, but before he could scream, the man had covered Naruto's mouth, muffling out the scream. The man gave a sinister grin, showing that he was taking pleasure in hurting the small boy. Soon he even began to laugh, as he saw tears pouring out of Naruto's eyes. The man looked at Naruto with a hint of insanity in his eyes, saying, you filthy demon spawn, you, and that whore of a demon mother. You should never be allowed into this village or this world. If anything, you should be a weapon of our village, you damn demon. As Naruto heard these words, it felt as though he knew that this man was telling the truth due to the fact that some of the people would call him a monster and half-breed behind his parents' backs. As the man pulled out another kunai and was about to deliver the killing blow, he felt a sharp pain in his arm and looked to see his arm was gone and on the other side of the room. The man screamed out in pain, and looked to see Kyubi standing there, her eyes glowing a bright blood red, along with red chakra surrounding her, and her teeth had become larger, as she growled at the man. The man just looked at Kyubi, and would have said something if he hadn't heard a strange sound behind him to see Minato with a Rasengan in hand, and throw it right into the intruder's chest, killing him instantly. After that was done, Kyubi quickly removed the kunai from Naruto's shoulder, and began using some healing chakra on it, and saw that it was nearly healed thanks to Naruto's demon chakra. While Minato looked over the dead man to see that it was Danzo, member of the council, and the leader of the Anburu program that Minato was planning to disband, after he had seen the results of what was being done to the kids that entered the program. He would look into what else was going on after he took care of his family. Once Kyubi was finished healing Naruto, he buried himself into the chest of his mother, crying out all that pain that was affecting him physically, but there was also pain of emotionally being harmed. For when Minato went over to look at Naruto the moment his son noticed him, he started screaming and thrashing in his mother's arms, as if he was scared of his father. Kyubi looked down at her son and asked him, Naruto-kun, what's wrong? It's okay now. Naruto wouldn't listen, instead he just kept screaming, and when Minato tried to get near him, Naruto took a swing at him with his claws, slightly cutting Minato's hand and causing it to bleed a little. This had stunned Kyubi and Minato, and had reached the same conclusion. Naruto had developed a fear for his father, but not just his father, most likely all humans. At this, Minato felt his heart breaking. Not only had he failed to protect his family, but now his own son was afraid of him, and most likely hated him. At this thought, tears began to form in his eyes, and he couldn't help but for the first time in years stopped himself from crying. Kyubi was also in tears because it was a sworn duty for all kitsune to protect their kits no matter what, and she had failed not only as a mate but as a mother. It wasn't long after that Naruto calmed down. That scent of blood and soul caught his attention. Naruto looked and could see his Ka-san crying, but also his Otu-san as well, because of him. Naruto looked at his Otu-san's hand and noticed a small cut on it, and that his claws had blood on them. At this he realized what he had done. Naruto got out of his mother's grasp and went over to his father and hugged him, even though he was still slightly afraid of him, but deep down he still loved his father. When Minato looked at Naruto hugging him, he was happy to know that some part of his son was still there, but it would be hard getting him to trust people again. Months went by after that night. At first Naruto hardly left his room or made contact with anyone, and even ran in fear of people who helped raise him like Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Shizune. It seemed that the only ones who could come near him were his father, to which he would flinch at, his mother, and her parents, due to the fact they were demons. It wasn't long before Minato and Kyubi decided to put Naruto into therapy, and got Sarutobi to help out, being known as the professor for a reason, the Yamanaka clan who were good with the mind, and the Haruno who were good at some medical. While going to these people for help, Naruto met the daughters of the family Sakura and Ino. When Naruto first met them, he wanted nothing to do with them, but over time he began to slightly trust them, if only a little. That's how things went on for a while, and with each day Naruto got better and better. He focused on his studies, and even began to ask his mother about how to use Kitsune chakra, to which she happily agreed to teach him. Then flashback. Even though it was so long ago, the memories were still fresh in the Namika's minds, especially Naruto's. Once the family had reached the Hyuga compound, they were greeted by a young branch member who was a little older than Naruto. He said his name was Nichi, and led them to the Hyuga council room. Once the three had entered the room, they were faced with many older-looking Hyuga clan members, Hyuga Hiyashi, and his wife Hyuga Aki, and a little girl standing next to her. Minato looked at his old friend, and bowed, as did Hiyashi. Aki and Kyubi smiled at each other, as Kyubi helped out Aki while she was pregnant with Hinata, and they became close ever since. Since the adults were getting along so well, it was thought that the kids would like each other intently. However, instead of getting along right away, Naruto and Hinata spent most of the time glaring at each other, each turning to their parents asking, "Why do I have to spend time with this brat?" Hearing that the two looked at each other, "Who you called brat?" they soon started growling at each other. The parents looked disappointed in their children's actions against one another. Before their parents could say anything that would help, Naruto stepped forward and shouted at Hinata, "What's your problem? Why do you act so high and mighty?" That had struck a chord with Hinata, and she let him know, "I don't act all high and mighty, you filthy half-breed." Naruto was stunned. Only one person had called him that, and all the pain of that night had come back to where he couldn't control himself. "Shut up, you freaky white-eyed bitch." Not long after, a shout of Naruto and Hinata were heard throughout the compound. The parents each looked at their children and looked at each other saying, "Will you excuse us for a moment?" Each grabbing their kids and walking off onto opposite directions of the compound. With Naruto, Kyubi, and Minato looked down at Naruto with anger and disappointment in their eyes. Naruto understood this and kept his facts to the ground. Kyubi looked down at her son and calmly said to Naruto, "What the hell is the matter with you lately? You're acting like everyone is your enemy." Naruto looked up at his mother to protest, "But Ka-san, that's not true. I only treat people who are dangerous to me, people who are human." Kyubi looked down at her son with a hint of shame in her eyes of how Naruto was acting against humans, ashamed of how she used to act when it came to humans. Kyubi looked down at her son Naruto. "I understand how you feel about humans. Believe me, I really do. I used to feel the same way a long time ago, until I met a very special human. A human that didn't care that I was a demon, he just wanted to be there for me, and love me." Naruto looked at his mother, surprised to hear that she once acted the same way he was until she met someone that changed her. He had to know, who was this human that changed you, Ka-san? Kyubi put a smile on her face before saying, "It was your Tao-san who changed me into a better person." After that began to walk away, but not before saying, "Naruto, I really want you to apologize to Hinata, not right away, but eventually." Naruto just looked at his mother confused as to why she would want him to be with this Hinata human anyway. with Hinata. Aki was having a similar discussion with Hinata, and was also having as much look as Kyubi was having with Naruto. Aki looked at her daughter, Hinata. What is the reason for your impolite actions against our guest? Hinata just scowled, not really caring about the guest, especially the half-breed, because a few of the Hyuga elders that were teaching Hinata have lately been making Hinata do things that pleased them, saying it was for the good of the clan. Eventually Hinata began to truly believe that what the elders were saying was true, that the clan was perfect and could do no wrong, and that anyone or thing different was not worth living. Aki had no knowledge of what was being taught to Hinata, and neither did Hiashi. They assumed that the teachings were to be a fair and honorable leader, not a puppet on a string. At first they thought it was merely stress brought on by Hinata's studies, but in time they began to see change in her, from using the curse seal on branch members for fun to shouting out loud how inferior to her clan. In short, Hinata had become cold and uncaring unless it came to her parents. Aki looked down at her daughter after seeing that she would not give an answer, so she said to Hinata, I noticed some changes with you while being taught under the Hyuga elders. At this, Hinata smiled, thinking that her mother would be proud that she was acting like a true Hyuga should be. Hi, Ka-san, I have been acting like a true Hyuga, should be showing others that they are beneath me, and that they have no right to exist without me, or saying are you proud of me, Ka-san? Aki looked down at her daughter in disgust, and Hinata saw that she was going to ask what was wrong, but never got the chance because Aki had slapped her across the face, sending her flying across the hallway. Hinata placed her hand on the spot where her mother had hit her with a slight stinging sensation every time she touched it, and looked at her mother. Ka-san, why? Aki looked down at her daughter with pure hate and disgust. Because you are no daughter of mine, you're nothing but a doll of the elders, and you disgust me. After that, Aki went into another room, slamming the door behind her. Hinata just stared at the door where her mother had gone through. She could feel tears building in her eyes. She was taught to never show tears for fears that were a sign of weakness, a thing the Hyuga clan were not. However, at that moment Hinata did not care about the clan or anything at the time, as tears began to fall from her eyes, saying to herself, Ka-san, why do you hate me? I did everything the elders told me to do to make you, and O2-san proud of me. Why do you hate me? On the other side of the door, Aki stood there listening to her daughter, while she was squeezing her first hard enough that small bits of blood were pouring from her hands, and tears from her eyes. While the mothers were talking to their children, Minato and Hashi were in one of the offices trying their best not to make eye contact with their oldest friend. Minato got the nerve to finally speak to Hiashi about Naruto. Hashi interrupted him. Naruto is not to blame for what happened, it was the attack on him those months ago. Upon hearing this, Minato wanted to stick up for Hinata, but could not come up with something. But the woman Kyubi was walking to the office where her mates were coming from when she came in contact with Aki sitting on the floor looking down at the floor with blood on her hands. Seeing this, Kyubi rushed to Aki in fear as to what had happened. What happened? Why is there blood on your hands, and why are you crying? Aki looked Kyubi's eyes bloodshot and moist before replying. The elders who turned Hinata into Kyubi. Aki didn't finish, as she buried her head in Kyubi's shoulder. Kyubi had no idea as to what Aki was talking about, but decided to take her to Hashi. If anyone would know what to do, it would be him. It wasn't long after that Kyubi had found Hashi and her mate, and when Hashi saw Aki, the normally cheerful woman whose spirit could never be broken, looked at Hashi was in a panic and ran over to her. Aki-chan, what's wrong? Did something happen to you? Hashi asked with concern that not even Minato knew he had. Aki looked at her husband and said to Hiashi, they did it to her, they're the reasons why Hinata has been acting this way. Hearing this, Hashi desperately wanted to know the reason his wife was upset and what had happened to his daughter. Aki began to explain what Hinata had told her about what the elders were teaching her and why she had been acting so strange. After hearing this, everyone had their own reactions. Aki was crying her eyes out, Hiashi's blood was boiling over, and his Byakugan activated. Kyubi's eyes were blood red, and red chakra surrounded her, while Minato gave off a killer intent that could be felt around the village. But everyone soon calmed down, and Minato spoke. As much as I want to do something about all this, we still have no proof, and even if we get Hinata to make a statement, there is no way to prove she is not being affected by the elders while making it. Everyone nodded their heads, seeing the logic in Minato's words. Even if they didn't like it, Minato spoke again. For now, let's focus on the peace treaty between Konoha and Kumagakure for now. While the adults were focusing on political matters, Naruto was thinking about how his mother was saying about how she was once like the way he treated people lately, but she doesn't seem that way now. In fact, she treated everyone like they were family, and showed them all love, but why? While Naruto was working all this out in head, he soon came upon the Hyuga family garden, which held many sakura trees, the koi fish pond, flower garden, and a zen garden. Look, I'm not familiar with Japanese culture, so if anyone knows the true name of this stuff, let me know. While he was looking around admiring the scenery, until he heard someone crying near the pond. Naruto went over to where the noise was coming from, and saw the Hyuga girl from earlier sitting in front of the pond, her arms around her knees crying into them. Seeing this, Naruto thought, what's she crying about? Probably told she didn't insult me enough, and got her favorite toy taken away from her. What a snob. Naruto walked up to her to tell to stop being such a whiny little brat until he heard her talking to herself, saying, "Why does Ka-san hate me? I did everything the elders told me to do to make her and O2-san proud of me, but they hate me. Why? What did I do wrong?" Naruto just stood in front of her speechless as to what she was saying. Once he was able to get his mouth working again, he spoke to her, "Hey, are you okay?" After saying this, Hinata looked up from where she was sitting to see someone standing over her, but due to the sun she couldn't make out who was, and got scared thinking it was someone who was going to kidnap her, and without a second thought she pushed Naruto into the pond. Naruto could have easily stopped her if it weren't for the fact that Naruto had stepped on some slippery uneven rocks, and fell right into the pond. Once Hinata had realized whom she pushed into the pond, she began to worry about what would her Ka-san do to her now, because she was just mean to the demon boy again. Once Naruto had come up for air, he suddenly had a weird taste in his mouth, and felt something moving, so he spit it out to reveal a koi fish, to which Naruto replied in a disgusted tone of voice, "Live sushi without ramen disgusting." After saying this, Naruto soon heard someone giggling at his actions. Naruto looked to where it was coming from, which was the Hyuga girl. Naruto scowled at her, and replied, "What's so funny?" Hinata kept giggling, and replied, "You said raw fish without ramen." Hinata began laughing out loud. It wasn't long after that Naruto began to laugh as well. Soon Naruto got out of the water soaking wet from head to toe. He began to shake the water off him like a dog, which caused Hinata to laugh harder at his actions, holding her ribs due to pain. Once Naruto was done shaking, and got his tails dry, he looked at Hinata, who looked like she was hyperventilating from laughter, and Naruto had to admit making this human girl's laugh was kind of nice. Once Hinata had stopped laughing at Naruto, she began to wipe away the tears from her eyes. But not long after that, Hinata looked at Naruto's shirt, and began to laugh again even harder. This confused Naruto, who asked, "What's so funny this time?" Hinata tried to make out words, but couldn't, so she pointed at his shirt, and said through fits of laughter, "Ha ha ha, fish." Hearing this, Naruto looked down to see a tail fin of a fish sticking out of his shirt. He went to grab it, and once he did, he pulled it out, and brought it to his face, where the fish began to slap him left to right over, and over again. At this, Hinata ribs nearly burst from laughter, and it only increased when the fish Naruto was holding slipped out of his, and shot right into his mouth, to which Naruto spite once again screamed to the sky, "I hate sushi." Hinata just kept looking at the blonde who was acting so much like a child, before remembering that he along with her was a child, but still it was funny. Once Naruto had stopped cursing at the sky, he looked at the Hyuga girl to tell to stop laughing at him, and that it wasn't funny, but looking at her laughing, and smiling, he felt good for some reason making her laugh like that, and soon began to laugh, as well. Soon the two kids were done laughing, and began to calm down while Naruto was the first. He noticed a bruise on Hinata's cheek, and asked, "Hey Hyuga girl, what happened to your face?" Hearing this, Hinata remembered the bruise, covered it up with her hand, and turned around away from him, saying, "Don't look at me." Naruto was confused as to why she was acting this way, and asked her, "Hey, what's wrong? Come turn around, and tell me what's wrong." Hinata didn't move, she just refused to turn around. It wasn't long before Naruto could hear her crying again. Naruto was shocked at this, wondering what exactly he had done before he was able to make out what Hinata was saying through her tears. "Don't look at me, I'm ugly." Naruto couldn't believe what he was hearing. Why would she say that there is nothing wrong with her? Naruto thought to himself before forcing her to turn around and look at him. Hinata was scared at this, as to why he would be doing this. Before hearing him say, "Why the hell would you think something like that?" Naruto yelled at her. Hinata still didn't understand why he was angry at her, and told him her thoughts. "I think that I'm ugly is because it's true, my perfect Hyuga skin is ruined, and now I'm ugly Ka-san, and O2-san will hate it because I'm not perfect like the elders said so." Naruto couldn't believe what he was hearing, and let Hinata know it was by far the stupidest thing I have ever heard of in my life. At this, every bird within the area took off, and Hinata fell backward onto the ground, and looked at Naruto with fear in her eyes. Naruto just looked down at the poor girl with his eyes beginning to turn red, and his voice sounded deeper than normal. "Do you really think that your family will care whether or not you're perfect?" Hinata was about to answer, but never got the chance. No, they wouldn't care. The only thing they care about is you being happy, and growing up to be a good person. That's what would make them proud. Hinata looked at Naruto, thinking about what he was saying, wondering about everything the elders told her that would make her parents proud, and yet after hearing her mother's words from earlier, maybe they were wrong. Then she thought back to how she had been acting and treating everyone. She understood why her mother was so angry. It all makes sense now, and she felt shame for what she did and how she treated people. But now she understood what she did was wrong, all because of this boy who she hadn't even learned the name of. Hinata looked at Naruto and said, "What's your name?" Naruto just looked at her like she was wired and answered, "Naruto, name is Naruto." Hinata smiled at hearing this, and replied, "My name's Hyuga Hinata. It's nice to meet you." Naruto smiled back, and looked at the bruise. It was still fresh, and would take a way to go away, but Naruto wanted to be friends with Hinata, so he asked, "Hey Hinata, if you like, I could do some healing techniques that could get rid of that bruise." Hinata heard this, and was really touched that Naruto wanted to do something nice for her, and it would get rid of her bruises. She then noticed his fox ears, and got an idea. She looked at Naruto and said, "If I let you heal my bruises, then you gotta let me do something." Naruto just looked at her wondering what she was planning, but agreed. "Okay, you let me heal your bruise, then you can do whatever you want afterwards, okay?" Hinata smiled and said okay. Naruto placed his hands on the bruise and began to pour his chakra into it, but due to him being his chakra was different and was making the 10 times more powerful at least. Within a few minutes the bruise was nearly healed, but since Naruto was still a beginner at molding chakra and using it, he had to focus on the bruise so that he didn't hear the footsteps behind him until "What are you doing, Naruto-kun?" Upon hearing this, Naruto became stiff as a board and you could tell the hair on his tail was sticking straight up. He and Hinata looked to where the voice came from to see Kyubi, Minato, Hashi, and Aki were standing there, all with curious looks on their faces. Naruto turned to his parents and smiled, hoping that they didn't make a big deal out of this. Hinata, however, refused to make eye contact, thinking her parents would hate her, but if she looked she would see the concern they have for her right now. Kyubi looked at her son and asked one of the many questions on her mind. "Naruto-kun, why are your clothes wet, and why is there a fish in your shirt?" Naruto looked down and saw that there was in fact another fish in his shirt that somehow stayed hidden all this time. Well, he made a grab for it and threw it in the lake, heard laughter, and saw Hinata laughing again. Naruto turned to her and said, "You knew that was there the whole time, didn't you?" Hinata smirked and replied, "Yep," with angrily. "Well, why didn't you say anything?" Hinata just put on an innocent face and said, "You never asked." Hearing this, everyone burst out laughing except for Naruto, who just glared at Hinata and said, "Oh, just shut up." Hinata took offense too and replied, "You shut up." Naruto replied this with a "No, you shut up," to which Hinata replied, "No, you shut up," and this continued for at least 5 minutes. After a while the adults were getting annoyed and about to end it when Hinata shouted at Naruto, "Why don't you make me shut up?" Then Naruto just growled at her and replied, "Alright, I will," and before anyone could stop him, Naruto grabbed the sides of Hinata's face and placed his lips against hers. At that moment it seemed time had stopped for the young Hyuga, as she was at first surprised at Naruto's actions, but then began to for some reason really enjoy it, and the only thought she could process in her head was "my first kiss, Naruto-kun." After a while Naruto backed off and looked with a cocky smirk on his face. "There, that got you to shut up." After that all the adults were stunned, some wanting blood, Hashi, some wanted to congratulate Minato, and some wanted to jump for joy at the newest couple, Kyubi and Aki. Hinata on the other hand, just stood there turning bright red, while Naruto was completely oblivious to what exactly he had done. Once Naruto had finished gloating as to his victory, he noticed Hinata was bright red and began to worry and asked her, "Hinata, are you okay?" Naruto felt her forehead so see she was running a fever, but the moment he did that Hinata turned a brighter red. Meanwhile, in a galaxy far, far away, on a planet somewhere in the middle of space, 2 green aliens with big black eyes were looking at the sky, noticing something red in the sky. One of them looked at the other and said, "What do you think that light is?" The other looked at him and said, "Probably a Hyuga." Back on Earth, not long after Naruto touched her, Hinata fainted on the spot, which caused Naruto to panic and look at everyone. "What happened? Is she okay, and why are you all staring at me like that?" Everyone's sweat dropped and Kyubi stepped forward and looked at her son, replying, "Naruto no Baka, do you realize what you just did?" Naruto looked confused and replied, "What did I do?" "All I did was kiss Hinata." After that Naruto's son fainted. After that the woman chuckled while Hashi wanted to kill Naruto in his sleep, but since he was the son of his best friend, he took it out on Minato. "Minato, you better give me a good reason not to kill you." Minato began to sweat trying to think up a good reason for his best friend not to kill him, because his son had kissed said best friend's daughter. After not being able to come up with a good reason, he turned to his wife and made looking for support, but got nothing. "But your son your problem, besides it's your fault anyway, for letting him be around." That pathetic excuse of an Irohaji-san of his, Kyubi replies with a scowl. Minato kept thinking about coming up with boys who will be boys. Hashi just activated his Byakugan and replied, "Not good enough." Minato soon fell to the Hyuga-juken. Afterwards Hinata began to wake up. She opened her eyes to see her mother above her with a smile. Hinata began to worry that her mother would hit her again, but she saw her mother smiling at her without a hint of malice in her eyes. Aki looked down at her daughter to see the look of innocence to which she thought was lost was still there, something she was glad the elders failed to do, and maybe Hinata would be alright, and smiled at her daughter. Hinata saw her mother smile, and was glad. That meant she wasn't mad at her, and she was happy, and she smiled back at her. After all that, I put a serious look on her face and said to Hinata, "Hinata-chan, we need to talk about a few things like Naruto being all wet, why he was healing on you, and let's not forget the little kiss you two had." Hearing this, Hinata blushed and refused to make eye contact. Hinata explained what she did after what her mother did to her. Aki looked down at this, but Hinata continued telling what happened to her pushing him into the lake, and his words of how she should change. Upon hearing this, everyone was surprised that Naruto would say such things to someone so young. He was very wise for his age. Soon everyone turned to see Naruto moving his tails, and waking up, Hinata walked over and kneeled next to him to see if he was okay. It wasn't long before Naruto opened his eyes and saw someone's face staring at someone's face, not just anyone, but someone who was very beautiful, and he felt a blush on his face. Hinata noticed that Naruto was blushing, and looking at her while he was doing it caused her to blush, and everyone saw this, and smiled. After a while Kyubi realized it was almost time for the meeting with Kamagakure to begin, and looked at Naruto, and smiled evilly. Okay Naruto, if you're done flirting with Hinata at this, Naruto burst red in the face, and Kyubi continued, but we need to get you into some new clothes, and Hinata no you can't come, and watch Naruto change. At this Hinata turned an equal shade of red, while Kyubi just kept laughing at this, until Naruto opened his mouth, and said the wrong thing to her cause Sanyu hentai. Now it felt as if time had slowed down until a huge burst of chakra went through the area, and Kyubi shouted Naruto you're dead. Minato looked down at his son in fear, and shouted Naruto run. On hearing this Naruto realized what he had done, and dodged his mother's claws, and looked to see her in what was often called the primal mode of demons, in which all demons will attack anything they want, and right now it was a pissed off mother, and a foul-mouthed son. While Naruto was running on all fours all around the compound with his mother on him, everyone else was just turning their heads left and right watching the events that were taking place. But it soon ended, as Kyubi chased Naruto over to the pound she had stopped, but Naruto kept running until he noticed his mother had stopped for some reason. Kyubi looked at her son, and smiled with an evil grin, and shouted Naruto-kun, how are you walking on water without using any chakra? Hearing this Naruto became confused as to what she was talking about until he looked down, and noticed just like his mother had said that he was standing on top of the pond, and not long after that he fell through the water again. When he did that Hashi looked at Minato, and asked him how did your son walk on water without using chakra? Minato just looked at him, and shrugged his shoulders. How should I know how he does stuff like that? Hell, I can't even figure out where he puts 25 bowls away. This Hashi sweat dropped thinking to himself like you don't already know you're a ramen freak. After Naruto had gotten out of the lake again, and spit some water out of his mouth this time no fish much to Hinata's disappointment. Once Naruto had gotten completely out of the water he looked clearly sad in an annoyed tone of voice. The next time I say let's go swimming, hit me with a shovel. After hearing that Kyubi announced that everyone could see Kyubi holding a shovel. Minato looked at his wife, and twitched asking Kyubi Haim where did you get that shovel? Kyubi just looked at him, and said, I don't know, and threw the shovel behind her forgetting her demonic strength. At the hot springs, the white-haired pervert was peeping at the local bathhouse for his research, when out of nowhere a shovel came from the sky, and hit him in the face, causing him to scream in pain. This also blew his cover, as the women had heard him, and walked out to see what was going on. Once they found the white-haired pervert, many of them released color intent on them walking forward, saying, Jiraiya you just wait until Tsunade hears about this. At this Jiraiya turned pale white, and began begging, can't we talk about this? That didn't work, and a loud scream was heard around the village. Back at the compound, everyone looked around after hearing this, and Aki asked, what was that? Kyubi replied, not a clue, but I have this good feeling, I get it every time a hentai gets beaten to an inch of his life. After hearing that everyone just shrugged off that thought, and Minato turned to Naruto. Naruto, we need you to change for the meeting to get moving. Hi, O2-san Naruto replied. As he was walking with his father Naruto remembered something, and went back to Hinata, and replied I almost forgot to finish this. He then began to produce healing chakra to his hands, and finished healing her cheeks. He smiled at his works, and noticed how much better she looked now, and replied, there, good, as new if not prettier. At hearing this, Hinata began to blush again. If she keeps this up she'll be known as Hinata the Red Hyuga, and smiled at Naruto. At this Naruto remembered the other part of the deal. Hey Hinata, what would you want to do if I healed your bruise? Hinata looked at him, and didn't forget it. Naruto just wouldn't take no for an answer. Come on Hinata, whatever is just do it. When hearing this Hinata began to get nervous. Well Hinata just kept looking at Naruto's fox ears, and just jumped at them, and began rubbing them. At this Naruto was shocked at what she was doing. He never let anyone touch his ears. It was embarrassing, but Naruto didn't throw her off. All he could really think was Hinata-chan's hands are really soft. After Hinata had finished she was about to apologize when she noticed Naruto walking off, but not before turning around, and saying, see you later Hinata-chan. Upon hearing this Hinata's brain stopped for a second, only to reply he called me Chan. At this Kyubi thought to herself this seems a little familiar, and smiled. Later the day the members of Kamagakure no Sato had shown up. One was Jonin, at least the other, and some civilians, one a woman with a great figure, blonde hair, and what some people would say purple cat eyes, and of course there was the fact that she had two tails right above her ass. Next to her was a little girl about a few years older than Naruto who had the same traits as the women, but instead of two tails she had three. Once the ambassadors had arrived at the Hyuga clan they were all greeted by Minato, and the Hyuga clan of course everyone was a little surprised that a demon cat would represent a country, but then they were doing the same thing. Minato greeted all the humans, and then reached the demon who bowed greetings. Hokage-sama, I am Nibi no Nakamata, and I completely understand if you find me a bit threatening due to me being a demon. Minato just smiled. It's not a big deal. Nibi-sama. Nibi looked confused until Minato moved his shirt to show the mark Kyubi had placed on him by Kyubi, the night they first made love. At seeing this, Nibi was speechless, thinking she was the only demon who would willing bed with a human, unlike some demons who just want a good time. But who could he have mated with? Nibi wondered. She didn't have to ponder for long before she said, "Will you hurry up, Naruto, you look fine." And hearing a look at the door the noise was coming from to see it open and reveal Kyubi. Upon hearing her name, Kyubi looked around to see her closest friend Ibi-chan. The two ran at each other and hugged one another, acting as if they hadn't seen each other in years, which was true, but not the point. The two had separated and looked at each other and smiled. Kyubi looked at her. "How have you been all this time?" Nibi replied, "Fine. I met a good man who became a secretary for the Reikage and had a kitten, and here I am, and you?" Kyubi looked at her old friend and smiled, kind of the same. "Picked a fight with Yamada no Urachi, got messed up, met my mate, and then had a kid." Nibi couldn't believe what she was hearing and said, "You had a child. Miss men are below the bottom of my feet," but in truth ran away whenever they got real close. Kyubi just twitched. "You didn't have to put it like that." Soon Kyubi looked to see a little girl hiding behind Nibi and asked, "What is your name, little kid?" The child looked at Kyubi afraid, saying, "My name's Yujiro Kyubi-sama." Kyubi smiled at the girl. She was shy like her mother was at that age, and her, as well. "Yujiro-chan, why don't you go and play with my kid over there? He's the one flirting with the Hyuga heirs." Yujiro looked confused by Kyubi's words and turned to her mother, who nodded that it was okay, and she ran off to make friends with Hinata and Naruto. Once she was out of sight, Nibi looked at Kyubi with a serious look on her face and said, "We need to talk to the head of the Hyuga clan and your mate. We need to go over something." While the adults were talking with one another, Yujiro met with Naruto and Hinata, saying hello, afraid that they wouldn't like it because of her being a half-demon or being a mere three-tailed demon, but she was wrong. They instantly liked her. The night was spent with talk from the adults and laughter from the children, but while the meeting took longer than expected, the three kids soon fell asleep in Hinata's bedroom, unaware of the men that had broken in the same room. The men had picked up Hinata and tied and gagged her. They were almost out if one of them hadn't stepped on a loose floorboard, waking up two half-demons who saw Hinata in a bag being kidnapped by someone, and so they attacked. Since Naruto and Yujiro didn't have any knowledge of Taijutsu, they went on their demonic instincts, and that was enough to take on two kidnappers. Even if the kidnappers had some experience with the way of a shinobi, they still weren't any matches for two kids. Once the last kidnapper was done, and his left eye was cut out, Naruto ran over to the bag to see if Hinata was alright. He used his claws to open the bag to see crying Hinata jump out at him. Naruto just held on to her, telling her that she would be alright, and how he would always be there to protect her when she needed him. Soon the guards came and found Hinata's room a bloody mess. Then the parents of all the children came along. The Hyuga family was glad that their daughter was okay. The Namikaze was proud that their son protected Hinata, and Nibi was also proud that her daughter protected her friends. After looking over the fallen but alive kidnappers, they found the Chunin from the cloud, and the Jounin was taken care of by Nibi. He told everyone that the Jounin was planning on putting together a rebellion against the Reikage once they had the Hyuga eyes on their side. After a while, Nibi explained how the Jounin was going to kidnap for the study of her eyes or breeding factory, and that the Jounin was a prime suspect, but there was no evidence until now. Once that was over, Nibi took over negotiations for her village, and a peace treaty was worked out. She and her daughter said goodbye to their friends and began their trip home. While they were leaving, and Hinata and Naruto were shouting goodbye, Kyubi noticed that the two were holding hands, and she smiled at this, just thinking of what a cute couple they could make in the future. Thanks for watching my video. Leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.